Hello, hello. I'm Casey.
And I'm Phil.
And this is
Render the Darkness.
Your fact for this episode is about sloths as requested from Fallon.
I love the shushies.
Sloths are faster in water than they are on land. They're actually 3 times faster in water than they are on land.
Oh no, I didn't know they could even swim.
Yep. Says the 3-fingered sloths have 2 more neck vertebrae than any other mammal, allowing them to turn their heads through 270 degrees and effortlessly keep their nose above water when swimming.
Wow.
Did
Go
not
slothies.
know that. So that was a fun little fact about sloths.
Alright, that was pretty cute.
On to you, Fallon.
Alright, thank you.
Welcome for shaking the camera.
I wasn't even moving. You was moving. Alright, so in this episode we will be talking about a case that is known by a lot of people. And it is known to be one of the most famous unsolved murder cases in American history.
It's ironic because it's a case that's known by many but yet known by none. No idea what I meant by that, do you?
No.
Well, because a lot of people know about the Zodiac Killer, but they never. I don't want to spoil alert.
You straight up just took it away. Okay. Well.
Yeah, do you want to start over? I will totally start over. You should have known what I meant. I would have had to explain it.
Anywho. Now, there are 5 known victims and 2 people that were very badly injured, but thankfully did survive. There are also 9 other possible victims and 2 serial murders that might be connected. Now, the case that I'm referring to, is if you didn't know already, is the Zodiac Killer.
Sorry.
It's okay. Now, this case is going to probably be 3 parts. Possibly 4, just depends, because I'm sure everyone knows that there's a lot of information out there on this case. Just let you guys know also that there's quite a few quotes and reports that I use in this, just because I want to be able to get as much of the factual information as I can about this case to you. So hopefully I will do it justice.
I think you will.
Well, thank you. Now, the attacks of the Zodiac Killer were known to have taken place in Benicia, Vallejo, Napa County, and the city of San Francisco. And because of the abnormal nature of the case, people from all over became very interested in it, and many people still are. Now, there's also a website that is solely dedicated to the Zodiac Killer called zodiackiller.com. I actually use this website for some of my research, and I will definitely link it in the show notes. Because there is quite a bit of information on the site, a lot of good information on the site. I also found 2 books that have a lot of great information about each case. They have pictures of the letters that the Zodiac sent, which I thought was really interesting. One book is called The Case of the Zodiac Killer by Michael Morford and Michael Ferguson. And the other book is called The Zodiac Killer, A Brief Investigation of America's Most, I'm going to try to say this correctly, enigmatic serial killer by Prash Gandra. So hopefully I said that correctly as well. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. Now, Betty Lou Jensen was born on July 22nd, 1952 in Kiowa County, Colorado. Her dad was LTC Vern Marion Jensen, and her mother's name was Virginia Lee Blinderman Jensen. She had one sister named McLody Jensen. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, because there was a couple different pronunciations that I found, the other one being McLeod. But for me it seems like that would be more like a last name. I could be wrong. Now, she was a junior of Hogan High, and she was a very distinguished student. She was also a Grand Royal Bride of the Primavera Council, number 132, in Pythian Sunshine Girls, according to the shadowofthezodiac.com. The website pythiansisters.org states that the purpose of the Sunshine Girls is to lay a foundation of purity, service, and usefulness in all things that help to make the lives of those around us happier and the world a better place to live in. Betty Lou also went to the Christian Science Church, which is different from Christianity in the way that they believe in the divinity of Jesus, just not the being, according to Britannica.com.
Interesting.
Now, David Arthur Faraday was born on October 2nd, 1951 in San Rafael, California. His dad's name was Thomas Faraday, and his mother's name was Jean Latourette Faraday. He had two brothers named Stephen and Robert, and he had one sister named Debbie. He was a senior at Vallejo High. He was pretty active in the school government. He was part of the wrestling team. He was in the Eagle Scouts, and he was a member of the Explorer Post number 209. He was given the highest honor in the Scouts, which was the God and Country Award. He was in the Order of the Arrow in Solano, Napa, and Lake County, which he was the lodge chief of, and he was in the Knights of Dunamis, which is an Eagle Scouts operation that is committed to service. He also worked in a group that was part of another scouting group called the Silverado Area Council, and he was a faithful member of the Presbyterian Church. I had to spell that out because I was having issues. It's kind of like my
Tranquilizer?
Yeah, kind of like that. I can't say that.
I wasn't going to say it so soon, so she'd keep trying. But
That's just rude. Now, a police report had said that the pair had met about a week prior at church during the decoration of the hall at the Pythian Castle. According to some people, David fell head over heels from the jump, and he was actually started to skip classes just so he could spend more time with Betty. And he would drive her home after school all the time. Now, Betty never really dated, and her sister had said that she should invite him to their house to meet their parents. Now, David would arrive at her house at around 8 p.m. on December 20th, 1968. They would tell her parents that they planned to go to a festival at Hogan High that was about 3 blocks away from her house. Then after that, they planned to go to a friend's party, and they said that they would be back at 11 o'clock. And one source said that they did attend the pre-Christmas party, and they left the school around 10 p.m., Another source said that they actually never went to the school and instead went to a friend's house and left there around 9 p.m. According to a witness, the couple would arrive at Lake Herman Road Turnout at 10:15 p.m., which a lot of teenagers would do at the time because it was considered as a lover's lane.
So just teenagers being teenagers.
Yeah. For sure. Now, a white Chevrolet Impala was spotted at the turnout at 9 p.m. and again at 10 p.m., which may not have had anything to do with the future horrific and tragic events that came about later, but it was strange that it was seen there a few hours before just sitting there. Now, there's a couple of hunters named Frank Gasser and Robert Connolly that said they seen a white door hardtop 1959 or 1960 Chevrolet Impala that was parked at gate number 10. And at the same time, they seen a truck that they weren't able to really identify when they had passed the turnout. When the two men left the area around 11 p.m. to 11:15 p.m., they seen the Rambler parked on the bank, which would be on the south side, but he said he didn't really see anyone in or around the car. Now, when the men went back to Frank's house, and Robert stayed there for about an hour or so before entering his own home at around 12 a.m. Now, the police said that they remembered the details that the two men stated about the Impala and the truck, but they also said they had seen a light-colored 1960 Rambler station wagon that was parked at the gate and that it was parked on the southwest of where the car had actually been found. They said that this information that the hunters gave matched the accounts that a man named Bingo Wessner had given. They said that he had said he had seen the Impala and a red truck, but some sources say that was not correct. The statement that the police have by a sheep herder named Bingo Wessner said that while he was out checking on his sheep, he seen a white Chevrolet Impala sedan that was parked by the south fence of the entryway to the pumping station. He had also said that he had seen a red truck with wood sideboards in the area as well. Now, when he was going to actually check on his sheep, Sometime before 10 p.m. is when he's seen the truck, and when he was actually out in the field checking on his sheep is when he's seen the Apollo. Now again, some sources say that these statements in the police reports are very inaccurate. I'll link the website that explains why this is true in the show notes.
That's true that it's inaccurate, or it's true that it happened?
It's true that it happened.
Okay.
Now, Peggy and Homer Yore were coming back from Sacramento at 11 p.m. going west on Lake Herman Road. Because Homer was wanting to check off the pipes that were close to Marshall Ranch, because he worked for the company that was responsible for laying the pipes in that area. And Peggy had said that she remembered seeing the young couple in the Rambler when they drove past the turnout, and she said that when their headlights illuminated the car, that she could actually see a boy sit up in the seat. Now, it took them about 30 seconds to reach Marshall Ranch, and this is where they ran into the hunters. She says she noticed that one of them had a long barrel gun and the other man was holding a flashlight. And after seeing that, they put the vehicle in reverse and drove back east towards Benicia. When they drove past the turnout a little after 11 p.m., the couple and the Rambler were still parked. So between the hours of 9:30 and 10 p.m., there was a couple that was parked at gate number 10 in the turnout facing the road. William Crow and his girlfriend had decided to test out a new sports car that she had just gotten, when they seen a car coming their way from Benicia. After the car passed them, they said that the car suddenly stopped and hit reverse, making its way back to them. Now, William had a bad feeling and decided that they needed to leave the area immediately. They headed back towards Benicia, but the car was right on their tail. Now, according to ZodiacCiphers.com, there's a police report that says that William had told the officers, and in that report it says this, quote, "He was driving his girlfriend's sports car and he was testing it out and adjusting the motor. He was parked in the open area by the pump station and he observed a blue car, possibly a Valiant, coming down the road from Benicia towards Vallejo. They passed his location, stopped in the middle of the road, and he saw the white lights of the reverse come on, and the car started backing up towards them. Mr. Crow put the car in gear and took off at a high rate of speed, and the car followed him at a high rate of speed. They did not attempt to gain on him, but when they got to the turnoff towards Benicia, William Crow turned towards Benicia, and the other car went straight ahead. The subjects were both Caucasians, and there is no further identification on the car or the subjects," end quote. Excuse me again. Now, a little while later, the facts, according to William, would change. This quote is a little longer, but I think that's important to the case because you get way more detail out of this account than in the actual police report. Also from ZodiacCipher.com, here is what he later said. "I sped up, the car behind me also sped up, and at one point as I was looking over my shoulder, the car behind me came up on my side with its right front fender near the driver's rear quarter panel and appeared to be moving toward making contact. I shifted to a lower gear and hit the gas. There's a fork in the road where one continues toward Benicia and the other moved more towards the freeway toward Vallejo. The car was clearly chasing me, and I waited until the last moment and then turned off. The larger car behind me could not make the turn. I went down approximately 200 yards and stopped in the middle of the road. The other car had stopped shortly after the turnoff. Each of us sat there in the road. Again, youthfully stupid, I yelled about kicking his. After some moments, the other car turned around in the roadway and went back down the road from which we had come. I kept making macho statements, but not totally without some sense about me. I drove home. I did not see the car again. I could not see the passenger seat, but the driver was a man with short hair and glasses. I did not see his specific facial features," end quote. Now, it's also said that in the original police report that William had, said that the car that they had seen was a blue Valiant and that there were 2 Caucasian men inside. But apparently that was not correct according to ZodiacCiphers.com. William said that he didn't say that. What he said was, "I never told the sheriff who interviewed me that the car I encountered was a Valiant. As I recall, as I was attempting to describe the car, the sheriff came up with a Valiant. In the years that have passed, when I have shared the events of that night, I described the car as a 4-door, light-colored Chevy," end quote.
So do you think that was just another moment where he changed his story, or do you think he was legitimately saying that the police got his details wrong in the first place?
I'm going to say that they probably got his details wrong in the first place because of the, because he said that he actually seen a 4-door Chevy.
Yeah.
Which, the other people were saying that they seen a Chevy Impala.
Right. But didn't they say theirs was a 2-door Chevy Impala?
I don't know if they said it was a 2-door or not. Give me a moment.
I thought you said they said that their Chevy Impala was a 2-door. I could be wrong.
Give me just a moment, I'm gonna look it up because I've already forgot.
And I could definitely be wrong, and I could be causing a...
I said that he's seen a white Chevrolet Impala sedan.
And didn't specify how many doors?
Nope.
Okay, that's my fault.
No,
Sorry.
Now I gotta go back and find where I was.
I'm so sorry. My interruptions.
You're fine. Gives me a chance to sing, which I shouldn't do anymore.
Thank you.
Thanks. Rudeness.
You do find a lot, though, in these types of cases, like where somebody has experienced something that was pretty traumatic in the moment, or is like, gets their adrenaline going or something like that. Like, you know, they say that you've got that initial small amount of shock right there, so your details may not be 100% off the jump. So for the details to change a little later, it's not completely unheard of.
No,
or like a cause for suspicion that his story changed, because in this particular situation, he was kind of the innocent party.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, you know, one of those things that, you know.
Why'd you whisper that?
She
said it happens.
I said that happens. Okay. So, now James Owen, who was a supervisor of Humble Oil in Benicia, was going to work when he drove past a turnout at 11:14 p.m. Now, he saw 2 cars that were parked beside one another within 3 to 4 feet between them. And he said he didn't see anyone in or around the cars at the time. When James was about a quarter mile down the road, he said that he thought he had heard a gunshot. In his first statement to the police, he didn't mention anything about hearing a gunshot. So here is his 2 statements to the police. On December 21st, 1968, the report says, he states he saw 2 cars parked near the entrance to the pumping station. He stated the car parked nearest was a 1955 or 1956 station wagon, box type, neutral in color. The other was parked to the right and abreast of the station wagon. The cars were about 10 feet apart. He stated he could not give a description of the make or color of the other car. Now, the other statement he made on December 24th, 1968, said he definitely saw 2 cars, a station wagon and another vehicle parked approximately 3 or 4 feet to the right of the station wagon. He did not see anyone in the cars or around them. He stated as he traveled approximately 1/4 of a mile beyond, he thought he heard a gunshot. So it's just kind of strange that the first time that, you know, he made the report, he didn't say anything about
that. Yeah. It seems like a pretty important thing to have added.
Yeah, I don't know if he just didn't, you know, remember right offhand after everything had happened. Maybe, you know.
Well, does he ever, like, I don't want to ruin any part of your case or whatever, but does he ever become, like, a suspect?
No. Sorry.
No.
My mind just went, boo. Oh, man, it's probably not a good day to be going, boo. But no, he isn't.
Okay.
As far as I know, he is not considered a suspect.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Okay.
Okay.
We shall see.
Yes, we shall see.
Tune in for the next 3 parts to find
Possibly.
out.
Alright, so now Stella Perez, she left her home that was about 1.5 miles west of the turnout. She came upon David and Betty at 11:20 p.m. laying on the gravel. Now she sped off towards Benicia to let the police know, and she found Captain Daniel Faraday, who would get to the crime scene at around 11:28. The police report on page 19 had said this. She states that no cars were going in either direction while she was on the road. When she arrived at the scene, headlights picked up the car and she observed a boy, and he had looked like he had fallen out of the open door. The girl was lying on her side facing the road. She had a purple dress on and looked well dressed. She saw only one car at the scene. It looked like a Rambler, grayish in color. It had a chrome rack on the top. She states she drove 60 or 70 miles an hour en route to Benicia to report the incident. When she saw the police car, she honked her horn and blinked her lights to attract the attention of the police officers. And David Faraday, who was 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, who was 16, were in their parked car at the turnout when it was thought that the killer drove up beside them and made them get out of the car by firing 2 shots with a .22 handgun. One of the bullets struck the right back window, shattering it, and stuck in the left rear wheel well and became stuck. The second bullet struck the inside of the roof and was taken from the fabric on the opposite side. The weapon they think the killer used was a JC Model 80 or High Standard Model 101 Super X copper-coated long rifle ammunition. That's according to Zodiac.cipher.com. Now, they think Betty and David got out of the car on the passenger side, but what happens next is really based on opinion, but the facts are that David had a gunshot wound under his left ear, and Betty, fearing for her life, seemed to have tried to make an escape, but unfortunately was shot in the right side of her back 5 times.
Oh my goodness.
Now, David was found lying perpendicular to the right side of the back tire, and Betty was found with her head facing the bumper of the car about 28 feet away. And when the police got to the scene, David was still breathing, but Betty was unfortunately pronounced deceased at the scene. They rushed David to the hospital, but was unfortunately pronounced DOA at 12:05 a.m. Now, the police were not able to find any kind of tire marks at the scene because of the cold temperatures on that night, which were below 22 degrees. So the ground was so hard and solid that there was nothing there.
For those that may not know medical terminology, DOA stands for dead on arrival.
Yes. Sorry, I should have said that.
It's okay.
Okay, so now, if I pronounce these names wrong, I'm really sorry. I'm trying. Alright, so Michael Renaud Mageau was born on October 29th, 1949. His dad's name was Robert William Mageau, and he owned a pest control company. His mom's name was Carmen, and he also had an identical twin brother. Now, I couldn't find a lot on his mother or his twin brother. At the time of the attack, his parents were divorced, and his brother was living with his mother in LA, California. And he spent most of his life in Vallejo and had a pretty normal teenage life growing up. Now, Darlene Elizabeth Ferrin was born on March 17th, 1947 in Oakland, California as Darlene Elizabeth Sweenan. Her dad's name was Leo Sweenan Jr., who was born in Oakland, California on June 15th, 1926 and passed away on June 18th, 2009. Her mother's name was Norma Jean Hightower Sweenan and was born in Texas on August 16th, 1929 and passed away on January 8th, 1981. She also had a brother named Leo Sweenan III, who was born December 21st, 1950, who sadly passed away on July 13th, 1954.
Aww.
He wasn't very old.
Little baby.
And she was married to Arthur A. Ferrin, and they had a daughter named Dina Ferrin, born January 24th, 1968 in Solano County, California. Now, Darlene was working at Terry's Waffle Shop, where she had originally met Michael. Now, even though she was married, she decided to go out on a date with Michael, and it said that she went to his home around 11:30 p.m. on July 4th, 1969, and they left not too long after she arrived. Now, they were headed to Mr. Ed's restaurant, and after driving in that direction for a little while, they decided to turn around and go to Blue Rock Spring Park. Now, in the police report, though, it says that Darlene's husband and her employer, Bill, said, Darlene and her sister Christina Sweenan had been at Mr. Ferrin's place of employment, Caesars, in the 300 block of Tennessee Street at approximately 10:30 p.m., and at this time Darlene left, saying that she was going to take Christina home, then go home herself to 1300 Virginia Street. And then at approximately 11:30 p.m., Lee called Darlene to ask her if she would try to find a fireworks booth open to purchase some, as they were going to have a party at her home. Well, it says at 1300 Virginia Street. Now, a couple of women who would babysit for her, named Pamela and Janet, said that, quote, Darlene didn't return until about 10:30 p.m. or shortly before that. They also indicated that after she had cleaned the house for just a few minutes, she was going to go and get some fireworks. And they said, quote, Darlene left the house around 11:40 p.m. and they didn't see her again. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy in the timelines here, because a lot of people seen that Darlene was still at home at 11:30, and that she didn't actually leave the house until 11:40, arriving at Michael's house a little while later. Now, many people were celebrating the 4th of July, and Michael and Darlene were parked in the lot listening to some music while they talked, when a vehicle with a bunch of kids pulled into the parking lot, shooting off firecrackers before taking off again. A little while later, another car pulled into the lot and turned their lights off and just sat there for a while. Now, the car finally left and drove towards Vallejo Spring Road. Now, in the report, Michael said, quote, Dee turned the lights and the motor off and the radio playing. They were there just a very short time, a few minutes, and 3 cars pulled into the parking lot where they were. They were apparently young kids, and they heard some laughing and carrying on, and a few firecrackers were set off. Then the 3 vehicles left within a short time. This was just a short space of time, a few minutes. Shortly after this, and about 5 minutes before the shooting occurred, a vehicle pulled into the parking lot, coming from the direction of Springs Road in Vallejo. The driver turned the lights off on the car and pulled around to the left or east side of the car, approximately 6 or 8 feet away, and sat there for a minute. He had asked Dee if she knew who it was, and she stated, oh, never mind. So it was almost like maybe she kind of knew, or she thought she knew who it was. Like, yeah. Oh, no, don't worry about him, or don't worry about them, don't worry about it.
That's kind of a strange response to that question. Oh, never mind.
Yeah. So. But about 5 minutes later, another car pulled into the lot that looked like the same car as before, according to Michael. The car pulled up about 10 feet from them at the back of their car. They say a man got out of the car holding a very bright flashlight and a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Uh-oh. Now, the way that the man had approached their car, they automatically assumed that he was a police officer. So Michael started looking for his identification, and the man at his window, which was at the passenger side, lifted his gun and without saying anything at all, he fired 5 shots into the car, hitting Michael and Darlene several times. Now, Michael said that the shots were pretty muffled, and he said that the gun, quote, sounded like it had a silencer on it. And after the attack, Michael tried to keep from getting shot again by jumping into the back seat. Now, after the man finished firing, he turned around, got back into his car. Now, Michael would say that he grabbed the outside door handle and fell into the ground and was able to see the man take off at a very high rate of speed in the direction of Vallejo.
Do you think the guy just ran out of bullets, or do you think he thought Michael was dead?
I think he thought that he was dead. Now, 2 of the officers that were at the scene first were Richard Hoffman and Ed Rust, but Hoffman was on the scene first. When Rust arrived, he seen that Hoffman was tending to Michael, who was on the ground on his back by the open car door. He seen Darlene in the car and made his way over to her. Now, she was sitting behind the steering wheel, not really moving, and Rust was trying to ask her what happened, but he wasn't able to really make out what she was saying because of her injuries. Michael and Darlene were both rushed to the hospital, and while on the way, the EMTs were performing resuscitation on Darlene the whole way there. But unfortunately, when they arrived, she was pronounced deceased at 12:38 a.m. at Kaiser Hospital. Now, thankfully, Michael would survive the attack, and after he was able to recover some, he was able to give the Detective Rust a description of his attacker.
Okay.
Now, he told them that the man was heavy-set, 5 foot 8 inches tall, had a muscular type build. He may have weighed around 195 to 200 pounds, short curly hair that was light brown to almost blonde color.
Okay.
Now, George Bryant, who was the son of a caretaker at Blue Spring Park, was only 800 feet from the scene at home in bed. He would say that he could hear people laughing, having fun, shooting off firecrackers, but he didn't really see anyone in the area. Around midnight, he thought he heard what he thought sounded like a gunshot, because it sounded a lot louder than a firecracker. There was a brief moment of silence, and then he heard what sounded like multiple shots and the squealing of tires. He never did go out to see what happened because it was the 4th of July, so he thought it was just people out celebrating. Yeah. Now, because George heard the shots, Makes it seem more likely that Michael's hearing was affected by the first shot rather than the gun having a silencer attached.
Okay. So they just sounded muffled to him because his eardrum got damaged from the initial.
That's what they're thinking. Because, George, being 800 feet away.
He could hear them all clearly.
Yeah. Now, the memory of the number of gunshots would be different between Michael and George, but what we do know is that 9 bullet casings were found in the car. 7 in the right side of the car and 2 in the passenger seat.
Well, he sure shot a lot in the car.
Yes. Now, here is when the first contact with the killer, here is when the police get first contact by the killer. It was on July 5th, 1969 at 12:40 a.m. Now, Nancy Slover, who was a police dispatcher, received a phone call 40 minutes after the attack on Michael and Darlene. The caller was using a payphone at a gas station on Spring Road and Ptolemy, which was actually pretty close to where Darlene lived. And the caller claimed that he was the one that had attacked Michael and Darlene, and he was also the one who killed the couple on Herman Road, which was David and Betty. Nancy said that the caller had a tone in his voice that seemed like he was taunting and mocking her just to shock her, and she said, quote, "It worked." Now, the words that the caller said was, quote, "I want to report a double murder. If you will, go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park. You will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." Now, excuse me. Now, on July 31st, 1969, the San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle, and the Vallejo Times-Herald would receive a piece of paper that had a code on it that was sent by the killer. Now, in these letters, he described details of the first 2 crimes that he had committed. Now, Police Chief Jack E. Stilts didn't really believe that the sender of the letters and the killer were the same person. So he had asked that the writer send in more information to prove that he was the killer. So one of the coded letters was published on August 1st, the second was on August 2nd, and the third was on August 3rd. The San Francisco Examiner again printed that Chief Jack Stilts was not convinced he was the killer, so again asked him to send more proof. The killer did not take long to respond to this because on August 4th, 1969, the San Francisco Examiner received another letter, which they think was actually hand-delivered.
So do you think that he legitimately thought the killer wasn't associated with the murders, or do you think he was just trying to initiate more interaction and communication from this person?
I just think he didn't think that the person that was sending the code or the letter was the actual killer.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess whenever
Because if he did, it would have been smart to keep saying that he didn't, so that he would kind of like double taunt the guy, into inspiring him to continue writing in so they could get more
and more
information.
If he just keep talking, like if he was what do you call it, like an ego or whatever.
Right.
He was trying to,
I mean, the guy clearly either wanted to be caught or he at the very least wanted attention. Like, clearly.
For sure.
Or he wouldn't have reached out and contacted the police in the first place. If this even is the right person, I mean, this could have been somebody that just wanted the claim to fame or wanted the attention and was saying that he was the killer.
Right.
But with that happening so soon after the attacks, you'd think that, I mean, he might be telling the truth.
He could very well.
Because I can't imagine there was a whole lot of information released at that point just a couple hours later.
Yeah. That's true. Okay. So again, they thought that the letter was actually hand delivered. Now this time it is the first letter that has the Zodiac symbol on it. So the letter talked about the night of Michael and Darlene's attack and information on the call made to Nancy. Just bear with me on this because there's a lot of errors with the grammar in this letter. A lot.
So you're reading it exactly how he sent it.
This is his letter, his wording.
This is exactly how he worded it.
Yes, this is exactly how he worded it.
Okay.
So it says, "This is the Zodiac speaking. In answer to your question for more details about the good times I have had in Vallejo, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they will have me. On the 4th of July, I did not open the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally sitting in the front seat when I began firing. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leaped backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim. He ended up on the back seat, then the floor in the back. I'm going to assume that means thrashing out very violently with his legs. That's how I shot him in the knee. I did not leave the scene of the killing with squealing tires plus racing engine as described in the Vallejo paper. I drove away quite slowly so as not to draw attention to my car. The man who told police that my car was brown was, again, this is his letter, that my car was brown was a Negro about 40 to 45, rather shabbily dressed. I was in this phone booth having some fun with the Vallejo cop when he was walking by. When I hung the phone up, the damn thing began to ring, and that drew his attention to me in my car. Last Christmas, in that, I'm going to assume, escapade? Episode? Yeah, I'm going to say episode. The police were wondering how I could shoot, plus hit my victims in the dark. They did not openly state this, but implied this by saying it was a well-lit night. Plus, I could see silhouettes on the horizon. Bullshit. That area is surrounded by high hills plus trees. What I did was tape a small pencil flashlight to the barrel of my gun. If you notice, in the center of the beam of light, if you aim it at the wall or ceiling, you will see a black or dark spot in the center of the circle of light about 3 to 6 inches across. When taped to a gun barrel, the bullet will strike in the center of the black dot in the light. All I had to do was spray them as if it was a water hose. There was no need to use the gun sights. I was not happy to see that I did not get on the front page coverage. I was not happy to see that I did not get front page coverage. Now, at the end of this letter is the Zodiac sign, and it also stated no address. So, this is where I'm going to end part 1.
So basically, this dude is not only taunting the police, but he's like, hey, you guys are doing a real shit job of covering this because I should be the headlines right now. So it almost sounds like maybe he's taking it as a challenge at this point to see what he has to do to be put on the front page.
Well, in part 2, it'll explain what he means there a little bit more.
Okay.
Because there is a reason why he says that very last sentence.
Okay. Alright, I don't want to spoil alert anything else in the case.
Oh, no, you're fine.
It just seems like a real cocky and arrogant letter to have sent.
Yeah.
You know, basically telling them, like, everything you guys are thinking had happened is wrong.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing should be your utmost focus right now.
Yeah. Like, it should all be on me.
Yeah. So he's very much attention-seeking with these notes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very interested to see what more we get about this guy in part 2.
Now in part 2, we will talk more about the 408 codes.
Okay.
Who deciphered them, the lake sorry if I say this incorrectly, the lake I cannot talk. Barracia murder, and possibly the Presidio Heights murder. If we have time, if not, then we'll talk about them in part 3.
Okay. Looking forward to that.
So, yeah, it was a lot of stuff.
I'm very interested in what you got going on with this case. I am excited to see how this all plays out.
Well, me too. Like I said, I know a lot of people know about it.
Yeah.
But,
there's some details that you've put in here, like, because obviously this has been around for a while, and I've seen the movie and all that stuff, but, you know, some of what you've put in here are things that I didn't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, on this website that I'm using quite a bit of, I mean, I use a few, but on this, that, zodiaccipher.com, you can go in there, and they have, like, pictures of, they have, like, some of the autopsies, they have, like, the letters, they have the newspapers, they have, like, diagrams, they have, like,
go above and beyond the information that you could possibly need or want.
And they have a lot of information.
That's awesome that they are able to have all that stuff.
So if you want to find out more before we start, or, anything like that, definitely go check out zodiaccipher.com, because great cipher information.
All right on. That's it. I look forward to the next part. I do want to add too, as a side note as a general side note, just for the record, anybody who is watching the video parts of these, I'm not mean mugging you guys. I have the sun, and I know you can tell even with me talking right now, I have the stripe going down my face. I have the sun in my face almost the whole time we're recording, every time. She gets to be back in the corner where she doesn't have that problem. But just know I'm not mean mugging you. And when you see me looking at the camera and I'm doing like this, I don't know if you guys always see the light on my face, but if I'm doing that, it's because the sun is like bam in my eyes and I'm trying to move out of the line of out of the line of the sunlight.
Yeah.
So, like right now, you can't see any sunlight on my face, but the beams of that sun, you can ask Fallon, they are directly in my eyesight right now.
You know, like if you move a little bit, like right there, that's usually where she hangs out, you know, like right in there. That's where you see.
So, for the record, I don't have RBF. I'm not mean mugging you guys. I just legitimately am being blinded the majority of these episodes. And I know somebody's going to be like, why don't you get a darker curtain? I would, but then it makes the room too dark and the filming isn't. You can't really see it. So
I guess we could always trust it.
We're going to try to...
You can sit there.
Yeah, as I say, we're going to have to try to readjust that so that I'm not... Because I'm not, like, not paying attention to the episode, or I'm not, you know, I know my eyes are kind of squinted most of the time, or my head is down, or I'm moving. It's the sun. Just for the record, is the
black hole sun.
I'm dealing with some trauma from this, Fallon. Somebody talking about black hole suns.
That was a good song.
It was a great song. Great song.
I'm sure you don't want to hear me sing, so I will quit. For the second time, I said I was going to quit.
As always, thank you guys so much for joining us. Hopefully you come back for part 2. And if you do, we look forward to spending time with you again. And we look forward to you spending time with us. And thank you for our subscribers and our supporters and our listeners. And for any future subscribers, supporters, and listeners we may have, thank you ahead of time. We appreciate each and every single one of you.
Yes.
It means a whole lot. So thank you, and I hope you like what we're doing and how we're doing it. And if you don't and you have some suggestions, please feel free to reach out.
Yes.
We will respond every time. I promise.
Every time. So I did it again. 3rd time.
Just quit. Singing Fallon over here. She was dancing last episode. Now she's singing. She's a happy fella. What are you gonna do?
She's a happy fella.
But this is Render the Darkness. Woo.